Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, global markets reporter at Nasdaq. Joining us at the MarketSite studio in Times Square, New York City, we have Melissa Frakman, founding partner and CEO of Emphasis Ventures, to discuss why the digital infrastructure being built in India today will transform global markets in the next decade. Melissa, it's great to have you with us. Welcome to Trade Talks.
So great to be here. Thanks for having me.
And this is becoming a really hot topic. The world is following India's leadership on digital infrastructure and technology. Why do you think what's being built in India today is really going to be influential over the next decade?
Yeah, I mean, this was top of many global CEOs' talking points during Prime Minister Modi's visit last week in the US. Digital infrastructure is sort of the underpinning of technology and financial services that happen. So identity, fraud products, payments, commerce and otherwise. And India has pioneered new business models for open national architecture. And there are companies building on top of it that are building fintech companies, Insuretech, commerce, otherwise, that the rest of the world is watching. We invest in companies in India that have another 50 countries around the world that are following in its footsteps.
What is driving global tech investing in India?
I mean, there's so many different things happening at the same time. India is at this confluence of its economic growth that is very exciting. Fifth largest global economy, set to be the third largest economy in the world by 2030. 1.4 billion people, very young population with domestic consumption that's driving growth. And so global tech companies, everyone from Apple, Tesla, Google, Hewlett-Packard today made an announcement, Amazon, together are investing billions of dollars, not just to sell their goods and services to the market, but even more so seeing India as a hub for product innovation and manufacturing for the world.
So let's expand on that. What makes India a stable, bright spot in what's a very complex global environment?
That's absolutely true, and it's a great question. I mean, I think the fact that India has stability in its policies around business and provides global businesses the predictability, transparency that they need. It's a good place to invest, and particularly in the world with what's happening in China, Latin America, Africa, Europe. Global investors and institutional investors and our partners around the world are seeing that India is a very attractive business climate. It's no longer a niche. It used to be more of a novelty, and now for global investors sitting in Wall Street and otherwise, they're seeing it as a hub.
How much capital are institutional investors deploying to the fintech sector in India?
It's growing all the time. Just in the past 2 years, $14 billion of capital was raised by India-focused growth stage venture funds and private equity. That's not even for the public markets. And with that, we're seeing all the major institutional investors across private markets raising India-dedicated funds. And we're seeing also that India's equity markets have been a bright spot in terms of consistent performance across their indices. The Nifty and Sensex have been very well performing relative to global peers and consistently over a long time.
Tell us about EMVC, Emphasis Ventures, and what's your investment thesis for India? How are you selecting where you're deploying your capital?
Sure. EMVC is a global venture capital fund investing early stage in entrepreneurs building the future of financial technology, insurance, and commerce. And while we have a global mandate, we see that India is 5 to 10 years ahead of the rest of the world. And so we're very focused on investing in startups that are in India or in emerging markets that are inspired by India. The EM in our name is a play on the fact, or a nod to the fact, that India has already emerged. And there will be another 50 countries that will follow in its footsteps. And then our strategy is to be very hands-on with portfolio companies in terms of their business development, global strategy, marketing, recruitment, business development, and otherwise. And we build meaningful partnerships between them and Fortune 500 companies and otherwise.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, here in the US, Insuretech is a big trend here, and you just mentioned that in India as well. And we know how antiquated insurance is here in the US. In India, is it more focused on technology? Does it have the legacy assets and dealing with what we do in the US? Are they leapfrogging ahead, in other words?
Absolutely. I mean, Insuretech is a perfect example where out of India's 1.4 billion people, insurance penetration is only 6% of GDP compared to 50% in many other markets around the world. And so across our portfolio company Clinic, which is building all-in-one health insurance and primary health care, is revolutionizing how affordability and access can work for families to access insurance and healthcare. And again, we're seeing that model being inspiring companies all over the world. And there's so much of that happening in Insuretech that's tech-driven, as well as just the fact that consumers are rapidly adopting because of this digital infrastructure. When payments are free and real-time, last mile poor villager can pay for their insurance policy using their thumbprint in a way that just would never happen in the US, where we would have to be on the phone with customer service for a long time.
Which is so interesting because India, Latin America, African markets, they don't have to deal with the legacy institutions and assets, so it seems as if it's evolving at light speed relative to what we're adopting here. What is the state of the India-US relationship?
Yeah, I mean, as a portfolio manager, we see that the state of the US-India relationship on a macro level is very important, even to this micro venture capital investing that we're doing. And the state of the relationship, particularly after a historic state visit by Prime Minister Modi with President Biden last week, is very strong. Both countries see that, as democracies, they need to work together, particularly as a key US ally in the Asia-Pacific region. And what's driving the bilateral relationship really is technology and business collaboration. So US businesses across small businesses and the largest Fortune 100 companies are all in on the bilateral relationship, and conversely, global Indian companies are investing and creating millions of jobs in the US. And so it still is early days in terms of what the potential for the relationship is, and we're very optimistic that it's a very bright future for the next couple decades.
Well, it's good that we're able to partner on the innovation side and not completely offshoring everything, so that it is encouraging to hear. All right, Melissa, appreciate the insight. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks, and thanks for joining me. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.